Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyman Prepping. And today I want to talk about in this video the aftermath of day 2 of the NATO summit in Lithuania, what the reaction was from the Russians, especially concerning the announcements on the F-16s and the training of pilots. They got a couple of bonus stories at the end, so stay around for that. And as always, please like, comment, and share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and join us for all the videos that I make now and in the future. So let's get started here with the first story I want to talk about the end of the second day of the summit. So this says that the war effort in shambles as hawks turn on each other. I think it's a little clickbaity, a little overblown. The first day, it says here you got hot-headed Zelenskyy at the NATO summit in Vilnius, and the growing Western backlash in the face of frustration and his ingratitude. Well, that was all fixed on day 2. Everybody made nice with each other. Zelenskyy showed gratitude. He showed thanks. NATO, all the Western NATO, countries pledged untiring willingness to support Ukraine, give them everything they need. Everybody's happy and all that. So that's basically how it ended on day 2. No real new announcements, no strategies, no timeline for this. What Zelenskyy freaked out about and went crazy is he thought he was going to have an easy path into NATO. And they basically said, well, when we agree and you met some conditions, which they didn't lay out any conditions even on day 2. No conditions were laid out. That's basically what came out of it. But they said, we'll let you in eventually. When this war is over. However, Russia says that's the reason they're at war. They'll never let them join NATO. So, at this point, either NATO, gets Russia out of Ukraine totally, or Russia stays where they are with the 4 territories they've conquered or conquers more, and there's no more NATO presence left. But Ukraine's not getting in NATO, according to Russia. So we got to contend with that. But going on here with what happened day 2, you'll see this is a very, this photo's been all over the internet. You probably have seen it. It's basically, if you're a world leader, you got Macron over here, and I don't know who everybody else is off the top of my head, but you basically have to wear a dark blue suit if you're a leader of a country. Unless you're Zelenskyy and you wore your army fatigues and then no one wants to talk to you. You're basically dead man walking, by yourself, no man's land. I'm sure this didn't go over well. In fact, a little later on you can see he spotted the photographer, and that look on his face to me means I'm going to murder that photographer for making me look stupid and like a sore loser out here on the field of NATO. So that didn't help out with anything. But the big talk in day 2 was the support to Ukraine, the fact that they're going to have F-16s, they're going to start training them, and what is Russia's response to that? And let's look at that article, because that's the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about in this video, and how we're basically on the brink of that World War III because of this decision to send F-16s, which, as I did a video back in January when the Abrams were being sent in, I said the F-16 will follow. Here we are 7 months later, and bam, they're coming. And they'll probably be there pretty quickly. But Sergei Lavrov, he's the foreign minister of Russia, very level-headed guy, mostly a politician. He's not like Dmitry Medvedev that just spouts out nuclear war once a week or so. So when this guy speaks and he talks about nuclear threats and how Russia's going to react, we take him pretty seriously because he's, like I said, more level-headed, more serious, and he knows the consequences of things, and he knows what what could happen if, Putin decides to counteract this F-16 going into Ukraine. So what we have here, first of all, is the White House National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. He reaffirmed at the conference in Lithuania that there, quote, will be a transfer of F-16s to Ukraine, likely from European countries that have excess F-16s. Why doesn't the United States give them themselves? Because that gives us a way to say, oh, it's not us, don't EMP us. If you're going to attack, nuke France, nuke the UK, Germany, Poland, but, leave us alone. I think that's what the United States is saying. It's kind of like not a cowardice play, but, they're hiding behind Europe on this one. Because let's say Poland gives the planes up, I imagine the United States is just going to backfill those with our F-16s and send them right over there. That's how we're going to get around it. We'll tell NATO countries, if you send your planes in, we'll give you some of ours to replace them. No big deal. Just send yours. So that's what I think will happen. But there's a quote here from Lavrov. It says here, Moscow can't ignore the nuclear capability of the U.S.-designed F-16 fighter jets that may be supplied to Ukraine by Western backers. This is in the nuclear domain. So Russia's big deal. Not only is the F-16 a great plane, you'll be able to take down some of their planes as well. The Su was it 22s or 25s? I don't know if you know. Comment below with the high-level plane that Russia's using over there right now. But the F-16 would be a great combat asset to support this counteroffensive, which isn't going too well. Even if they didn't use the tactical nukes, of course, but along with the cluster munitions, taking out the trench warfare, you have air support, air cover to take out artillery and other heavy armored vehicles. It could be a great bonus. But they're worried about the nuclear aspect, because as you see in the photo here, it says this is an F-16 that can carry the B-61 tactical nuclear bomb. So if an F-16 is flying around Ukraine, Russia thinks it might have a nuke on board. We don't know. It could, it could not. Let's just take it out of the sky, and maybe we need to take out those airports they're coming from, hit those countries that are supplying them, because we don't feel safe. Russia has a first strike doctrine in their nuclear, in their nuclear doctrine, they have a first strike capability, which says that if they're threatened by another nuclear nation, or conventional or nuclear, they have the right to first strike, and they think they can win the first strike. So if they see F-16s, and these F-16s are nuclear capable, they might choose the first strike advantage. Let's see, going on, another quote from Lavrov. The U.S. and its NATO satellites create the risk of a direct armed confrontation with Russia, and this may lead to catastrophic consequences. Yeah, no kidding. Another quote. We have informed the nuclear powers, the United States, UK, and France, that Russia can't ignore the ability of these aircraft to carry nuclear weapons. No assurances by the West will help here. Meaning, if we say, well, we're going to give these planes, we'll tell Russia, hey, we're going to give these planes over to Ukraine, but we assure you, cross our fingers, pinky promise, whatever it is, that we're not going to have tactical nukes on them. They never will. Don't worry about it. They're just out there for air support. Well, Russia's saying, we don't believe you. Obviously, you've crossed a lot of red lines. We don't trust you. We're going to assume they have tactical nukes on them. And lastly, it says, the appearance of such systems within the Ukrainian Armed Forces will be considered by us as a threat from the West in the nuclear domain. So what does that mean? That means it's a nuclear threat. I talked about their doctrine that says they can then have a first strike to counter the threat. And that's what they're basically threatening it to do, I think, is, we're going to take out these planes before they arrive, maybe take out the pilot training centers. They talked about training them in Romania, maybe in Poland. I think UK's already been training them. The United States has had some come to Arizona for flight simulator training, I believe. So it's already happening. The way it goes is when they announce, NATO or the United States announce that weapons are going to be there, like these cluster munitions. They just announced them. And there's already reports they've been used already. And today they're saying, oh, they're in theater now. Well, that was pretty damn quick. So when they say F-16 training's going to happen and the planes are coming, well, the training's probably been happening and the planes are going to show up sooner rather than later. I know it takes a long time to train these pilots. They're going to be very raw at the beginning. If you have experience in the Air Force, Navy, write in the comments below if you do or you know it. How long does it take a pilot to be trained on this? How long does it take to get proficient, at flying these and using them in combat? I don't know off the top of my head or anything I've looked at. So if you know, write it down below. But they're going to be very green pilots, and they probably won't be that effective. But in my theory, you're going to see NATO mercenaries or NATO pilots flying these things also. Maybe going out in sorties, because when they're in the plane and you're flying and Russia's up there and they have their jets or their radar, can they tell who's flying that plane? Is it a Ukrainian pilot? Is it a U.S. pilot? NATO pilot? Some mercenary pilot? They don't know who's flying it. So I wouldn't put it past NATO to sneak some, U.S. pilots in there, some NATO pilots in there to fly these missions also. Could through the spy networks in Russia find out? Sure, but I wouldn't put NATO past, putting, the pilots in there. Because we're at the point now where we've gone from, helmets and small arms to long-range missiles. France just said we're going to send some long-range missiles for them to use, kind of like the Storm Shadow UK missiles that are going over there. Now then we had tanks and then planes. There's not much left besides sending your own troops, sending your pilots and boots on the ground. If it comes to that, yeah, it's full-on World War III, and we're very close to that. when these F-16s start flying over Ukraine, we'll see what Russia does. Every red line that's been out there has been crossed, and Russia really hasn't done much. A few extra bombings, a few things going here and there, but we'll see if they actually do anything. If they don't do anything at this point, maybe Russia's all bluff, but we shall see. I don't think they're leaving Ukraine. I think we're going to have to push them out, but, it's the last major red line before actual boots on the ground. So we'll see what happens there. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, or a couple days ago in my other video, with Zelenskyy mad and upset that they're not in NATO, he's kind of cornered, and I know he's waiting for these pilots and these planes, but look for him to do something kind of wacky, crazy, irrational, because he's backed into a corner. Look for a false flag on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant or somewhere else. Look for a dirty bomb. I think he will try to do something to speed up these NATO involvement. I really do think he'll do that, even if it's behind the back of NATO, maybe with the support of NATO. I think something's coming, so just be aware of that. But that's the situation we're at now at the 2-day NATO summit. What has come out with it, Russia's response. We're just chugging on to that World War III and that head-on collision. That's what's going on there. So keep up your prep. Every day do something little because it's not slowing down. And let's get to those 2 quick bonus stories here before we get off. Let me get to them here really quickly. And they have to do with one of the financial world. I did a community post about this. Ripple, which has the XRP token. The judge decided here that the XRP token is not necessarily a security on its face. So they basically decided, that Ripple and XRP is not a security and it can be sold and traded. And people are like, who cares? What is XRP? What is Ripple? Why do we care? The reason this is a big deal is it's been used a lot in Asia now. What Ripple has done is they designed a token. It's kind of like Bitcoin, but there's called XRP. That's being used for money transfers from federal banks, Federal Reserves from other countries to large banks to transfer money from one to another. Right now, we know we use the SWIFT system, and everybody knows that with that because they kicked Russia out of it. But it's slow, it's analog, it's cumbersome, it can be hacked, all that good stuff. So what Ripple has done is they've come up with a blockchain method to transfer money almost instantaneously, secured on the blockchain. It's being used a lot, like I said, in Asia. And with it being cleared by this judge that it's not a security, it's good to use, they're not violating any financial laws or whatever, look for our own Federal Reserve, our own CBDC, the Fed coin, I think, this is just my prediction, I have no knowledge, no inside intel, but I'm predicting that XRP will be used at the Fed coin for our CBDC. And it'll come into play and it'll now spread to other countries, but that's how they're going to introduce it. The price of the XRP spiked like 30% just today. It's not really good for us, the people. If you're an investor and you bought it, a lot of cryptocurrency bros out there, they loved it. They've stuck with it. They think it's great. But if it's used for the CBDC and the rollout of that, it's just government control. Where you spend, who you spend, why you spend it, all can be tracked, all that. And, I don't think it's, I'm a straight gold and silver, God's money. Get back to that system before the dollar dies. This will be the last step, but looks like Ripple might be moving there. So that's what I want to point out. Keep your ears open for more news about that. But, I think if we look at it, CBDC is going to be on the Ripple blockchain, and it's going to be start putting out there, and then we'll see what the government does with it. And then the last story here I want to talk about is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. They've come out and basically said, we're not going to replenish that anytime soon. Which is bad, of course, because that's our reserve for wartime. And based on my first story, we're very close to World War III with them. And of course, you have China just waiting for the right time to go after Taiwan and cause havoc in that part of the world. So going on to, let's see, what are we at here? We got time. Let's go into this a little bit. It says the reserve will not be filled anytime soon. The U.S. Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Goldman, told CNN. She said the first term is over in about a year and a half. So I'm not sure it's going to be fully replenished. That's them basically saying it's not going to be replenished at all. But she says, quote, but certainly the plan is in maybe this term and the next to be able to do that. They were supposed to buy it at $67 to $72 a barrel when it got low. They bought 6.3 million barrels. That's it. But as you can see, it's been drained every month for over a year, I believe we're at now. We're at the lows of 1983 or even before that, basically when they started filling it. It's just a national security risk. Keep that in mind. They're doing it to keep gas prices low because they need inflation low. The numbers came out. Hey, inflation's 3%. This is a big part of it because gas prices are low. By the way, me and you know, if you've been shopping, if you bought food, clothing, try to go on a little vacation, it's a lot more than 3%. And not just from last year, even from last month. I find stuff that goes up 9, 10, 12% month over month at some stuff. But, those numbers, they come out, the government has to show, hey, it's only 3%. We're close to that 2%. Everybody cheer. Stock market, super excited. Don't get mixed up in all that. They're just saying, they're saying what the American people want to do. They want to keep them asleep, saying go back to spending, go back to your job, work that second job if you need to. Don't worry about inflation, what's going on with prices and the housing market and unemployment, all that. Everything's fine. That's what they're spewing out there. Don't listen to it. Try to get out of debt. Try to get into some precious metals. Not financial advice, of course, but try to get into that. Put your money into hard assets, food, fuel, brass, lead, gardening, all that good stuff. And, try not to hold on to too many US dollars because when that CBDC comes out from the Fed on that Ripple chain, there's going to be a lot of chaos, I think, happening. So that's what I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of this. And until next time, keep your ear to the ground, head on a swivel.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.